they're worthless. But to turn into a leadership lesson in real life, and when I say real life, I mean you're at work, right? You're right at work, at school, whatever. You end up in situations where you may be the follower and the leader may be busy. How many followers, now I'll ask it differently because some do want to just stay there their whole life, but I know it's not the people in the room or you wouldn't be in this course. How many people would like to be leaders one day? So you see now, and Dr. Mike did it this time. Believe it or not, almost any of you can become the leader at any moment. If the leader isn't on the spot, and you're the next in command or whatever, you look around, the way you do it is you look around real quick and you say, okay, are there any red belts? Are there any brown belts or whatever? And then somebody jumps up and takes charge. Understanding that the fact that the leader got caught up in something else doesn't mean that the mission can sacrifice. You guys understand? Believe it or not, Miss Barbara still loves to tell the story. I used to do it on purpose. It used to be a part of my, now to be honest, the rest of my leadership training was way less professional then, but I had a bunch of stuff from my military days. And so this was one of them. I would not show up to class on purpose, just to be watching and see who would step up and take charge. And I would be able to tell who had the future sensei potential by who was going to jump up and take charge without any prompting. You guys understand? Sure. Now today I have an exciting lesson. I apologize in advance because I'm going to do a lot more talking today than normal because I got so much I want to say that I want to try to get out fast. But it's going to be a lot of good stuff that those of you that are good note takers are going to get a lot of good stuff out of this today. By the way, it may or may not be good stuff because I may or may not deliver it well, and even more possible, you may or may not receive it well. You have to make sure you write it all down. You have to decide if it's valuable to you. And then if it's valuable to you, you have to do what? Act upon it. You have to act upon it. Otherwise, it's just knowledge, and knowledge without action is useless. So recently, I was listening to one of my mentors, one of my teachers. And this is a gentleman from way back in the day. Most of you won't have heard of him. Some will. His name is Jim Rohn. But you might have heard of some of his other students. You know, Jim Rohn taught Darren Hardy and Harv Eker and Tony Robbins, and right, like a lot of the names that you may be familiar with in personal and professional development were students of Jim Rohn. By the way, in Jim Rohn, when he tells his story, he was a student of Earl Schoaf. Every great teacher had a teacher. And when I was listening to Mr. Rohn recently, he said a couple things that I decided that I ended up creating the rest of this lesson plan around. The first is he said this, and this is some of that simple wisdom. And kids, you don't understand the dichotomy in what I just said, but it's that simple wisdom. Most wisdom actually is very simple. And here's the simple wisdom. The simple wisdom says, you know, we have come to find out that in anything, there are 5 or 6 things that make about 80% of the difference. In anything, there are 5 or 6 things that make about 80% of the difference. Now, what he's talking about and teaching about when he makes that comment is the thing that we call the fundamentals, the foundational, right? And of course, we have fundamentals in the martial arts. And we have fundamentals in business. And we have fundamentals in the way we teach. And we have fundamentals in fitness. And we have right? Like, so when he says in anything there are 5 or 6 things, we're not doing like the black belt superpowers, because like those 5 or 6 things apply to everything. I don't mean that. I mean, the 5 or 6 things that makes Daniel successful at what he does may be different than the 5 or 6 things that makes Dr. Mike successful at what he does, Rick successful at what he does, you know, Diamantopoulos successful at what she does, you know, all of you successful at whatever you do. Tony's successful at what he does. I'm talking to the adults right now on purpose, right? Because they all do different careers. They do something different for their living, but they know, if they're good at it, they know there's 5 or 6 things that make 80% of the difference. Now, by the way, does everybody realize that? No. In fact, the norm is to be distracted by, Jim Rohn calls it majoring in the minors. Being distracted by all the stuff that really doesn't matter and not focusing on the handful of things that really does. You guys understand? So there's 2 parts to the lesson I want to give you today. The first part is I'm going to give you one of the 5 or 6 things that Jim Rohn says is the secret to life. He actually has a whole sermon, he doesn't call them sermons, but a whole, lesson. That's the word I was looking for, a whole lesson where he gives the 5 secrets to life. I'm only going to show the first one today. And we're going to talk a lot on that because it's going to tie beautifully into what I wanted to do with the lesson today, which is let's come up with the 5 or 6 things that make 80% of the difference in becoming a great instructor. How cool would that be? All right. And of course, I happen to have some ideas after all these years of what those 5 or 6 things may be, but I don't want to just lecture that part. That part I want you guys to be, I want it to be an open discussion, okay? Because you know more than you realize you know already. I'll tell you why you know more than you, not just from what you've learned from me in a CIT class, you've been on the receiving side of it all. So if you're paying attention, you know the things that instructors did or didn't do that moved you closer to becoming the black belt leader you want to be or closer to the door. And ultimately, it all comes down to that. The 5 or 6 fundamentals in what we do, of course, got to be things that move our students closer to the goal of becoming black belt leaders and avoid the possibility of them making the worst of all mistakes and quitting before they become black belt leaders. Yes, yes? But I did not forget that first we were going to talk about life. This thing called life, Damien. So I'm going to be honest, when he said there are 5 things, when he said, and by the way, what had happened was, because I'm reading his stuff and listening to his stuff all the time, I love him, but it's mostly old stuff. I happened to put in jimrohn.com to see, is there anything I haven't heard yet? And he had like his what do you call it, when somebody's really, really known for something, his pinnacle, thing, and it was called Challenge to Succeed. And it was, and you could like buy this thing. And so I did, and I've been listening to that. And then that's where I got this thing and I was fired up. And he says, so when he said there, the 5 things, the 5 secrets to a great life, I started wondering, okay, I wonder what he's going to say they are. I had my ideas. Okay, it's going to be health, it's going to be wealth, it's going to be relationship, it's going to be, right? Anyway, the first one was not at all what I expected, and it fired me up. Because, and I'll give a hint, let's do this in a fun way. Those of you that know my story may be able to figure out what it is based on what I'm about to say. This thing is something that I studied I studied like from 1987 to, or 1989 to 1992. And I didn't think that it was relevant to what I was going to do for my livelihood. What is it, sir? Philosophy. Give them 2 claps. So Mr. Rohn said, the first secret to having a successful, amazing life is philosophy. And it was awesome because, for having a degree in philosophy, I never thought of it the way he defined it, really. His point was, your philosophy is just the sum total of all the things that you know, your decisions about that information, and what you do about it. I was like, wow. Because philosophy in college really means you study the thinking of lots of different men over lots of different time, and you know, and you get the ideas and all of that. But yes, sir. You don't even have to title it. Just put philosophy, because I'm not going to give you the 5. We're only going to talk about philosophy today, so actually just put philosophy. Yes, sir. Yeah, he said it's the total of what you know, what you decide about what you know, and then what you do about it. And the reason that was so exciting to me, because I know that sometimes I can have a hard time getting what I'm excited about out of my mind and through my mouth and to you. So let me explain. When he said it, not only was I like, yeah, that's cool. That is why I loved philosophy so much. Not only was there that part, but more importantly, there was this part. There was, wow, this is exactly what we do with my Black Belt Leadership Program. This is what the Black Belt Leadership Program is all about. It's about helping people. And that's why I get so excited, especially with the young people. Don't get me wrong, I think that if we can refine our philosophy at any age, it helps us be better. But man, if you can get kids to have the philosophy of success, the philosophy of, you know, a philosophy that serves them well, instead of the philosophy being fed to them by the world, young, now you're really talking about doing something powerful and impactful. So when he was talking about philosophy, he also said this. He said, so the first thing, I already told you that. Let's do it this way. Let's say that A is what you know. So knowledge, right? A is knowledge, or what you know. Now let's talk about the ways that we know. There's really only 2 main ways to get knowledge, and there's lots of subdivisions. And the first way is what we call PE. Personal experience. Give them 2 claps. The PE stands for personal experience. So this one's going to be easy for everybody now, so you can all yell it out. The second one is other people's experience. Now, how many people know that the personal experience can be very valuable, but also comes very slow and hard? All right? So what I'm trying to tell you is, it is an error. Do you remember when I taught you guys the quote about, this is also Jim Rohn, but when I taught you the quote where he says that success is small disciplines done daily over time, and failure is small errors executed daily over time? Thinking that personal experience is the best way to learn is one of those errors. And let me tell you something. Unfortunately, it comes very natural to you when you're young. Like, in other words, mom or dad tried to tell you the right way, but you want to learn the hard way. And so, but it is valid, because to be honest, not all, because I'm going to teach you all the rest of the knowledge the way I got it, but a lot of it I did get the hard way. Right? And that's why older people are wise, because they've done it wrong enough to be able to tell you what not to do, which leads to OPE, right? There's only 2 things that other people can teach you, and what is it? They can teach you from their failures, and they can teach you from their success. And oh, by the way, Jim has a real funny part of the talk where he goes, I'd love to learn from a failure. He goes, failures just don't give seminars much, but do you think, he says, do you think there would be value in sitting down with a 40-year-old person that has wrecked their life and saying, tell me what you did in the land of the free, of opportunity, good family, good economic, good every opportunity to be successful. Tell me what you did to ruin your life so I can learn from it. And then you can find people that have done it right, and you can learn from them. Yes, sir.
It's a book by
Yes.
Which is phenomenal.
Yes.
It's comical and he tells all of his stories.
Yeah, no, and certainly, look, certainly PE will still always be a part of the way you learn because of that, because especially once you're to the point where you're like running something. And oh, by the way, since 22 years I've been running this dojo and I've had both. I have had critically painful lessons that I'll never make the same mistakes again. I have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'll tell everybody that, building this thing. But those were the ones that caused me to come, I learned from them. Because for a brief moment in time, nobody even knows this history. And I hate to tell it only because it's going to happen again, but this time it'll happen right. For a brief moment in time, how many years ago, babe? I don't know. The 3 schools. 16 years ago, I had 3 schools. So in a very short time, I had a period of success where I expanded quickly, way too quickly, without other people's experience, and learned really, really hard, a lot of really, really important lessons. Kept the one school that was really taking all my money way longer than I should have. And I mean, it took me years to dig out of that hole. But, so that's the point. That's how personal experience, it can work, but it's painful. Now I have mentors. People go, why do you pay somebody to teach you? Because it's way less expensive than the other way. Way less expensive than the other way. Right? Now, and I mean it, look, unfortunately, this can be misconstrued and come off as, there's things when I was listening to Jim Rohn, I said, wow, I wonder if he would get away with that today. And I'm still going to tell it to you. So I will find out if I get away with it today. Because here's the stuff. Everybody's where they are for exactly this reason. That's one of the cruel hard truths. You don't live in America and be down and out for any reason other than the decisions that you make, the actions that you take, the things that you do. So, because everybody has the same opportunity, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day, it all comes down to philosophy and choices. So, and by the way, and I could give, this I won't do, but I could give personal examples of both from this week. This week I've been observing people a lot. I had some very difficult encounters with lots of people. And I've been observing people, and it's so neat because there's the ones that you can see why they're successful in life, because even in conflict, even when we were in conflict, we both behaved in a way where you could see why we're at in life. And then there were other people that showed me why they will always be where they are in life, no matter how much I try to help them. And you can just do it by the way they talk, the things they say, the behaviors they take. And it's unfortunately because like I'm not going to go that deep. There's too many kids here for me to go into generational stuff. But let me just say, let's just talk about us. Let's just talk about us and what we can do about this. The other people's experience can come to you in a lot of different ways. It can come to you in a form like this. Through the Black Belt Leadership Program, you're learning from other people's experience and knowledge. A lot of what I teach you, I didn't get from personal experience. I got from other people's experience, but it's still being passed on from other people's experience. But you can also get it from what you listen to, what you read, what you watch. And oh, by the way, and this is insidious what I'm about to say. Who would like to define insidious for the people that don't know insidious? There's definitely some people in the room that don't know insidious. What is it?
It's a really good movie,
Well, what it basically means, it's hidden, and it's dangerous, and it's not positive. Like your rap music. What I'm saying is that people really believe they can listen to crap and that it's not going to affect their lives. And I don't mean to say that all rap music is Because if you happen to be able to find some that says the right things, and you somehow like that music, then that's your prerogative. I'm talking about the lyrics. I'm talking about if you're listening to people talk about evil, nasty, base things, and then thinking that you're going to go shine a positive, that you're going to think and communicate and act in a positive way, it's not possible. You don't think it's affecting you, but it is, because we are being programmed. When Jim Rohn said that your philosophy is the most important thing for your life, let's put it in modern day language for you guys. Your philosophy is your programming. And you're either being programmed for good and wonderful and beautiful things, or you're being programmed for evil, unworthy things. And a lot of times people are just programming you because they want to use it against you. Let me tell you something. If you did want to take the most successful nation in the world, the one that is the land of opportunity that everybody else always has wanted to get to, and you wanted to ruin it and make it so bad that that would not be true, you'd do a lot of the things that are happening right now. Because if you can get people thinking wrong with their philosophy, thinking wrong about their economics, thinking wrong about their own ability to lift themselves out of whatever state they're in, what an easy way to make them dependent on you. So what I'm saying, kids, because I know I'm speaking kind of high, is you have to be careful about who you listen to, what you read, who you trust, who you emulate. Do you know what emulate means? Who you want to be like, who you want to copy. Believe it or not, you guys help me with that. Because anytime I'm going to make a decision or say a thing or act in a certain way, I think, what will my students think? Because I want to be a man worthy of you wanting to copy me. And if I'm going to do something that I'm like, I wouldn't want Ephraim to do that, why would I do it? You guys understand? And you have to be, yes, ma'am. Yeah, what you watch on YouTube, all the stuff, all the places, because they've opened the floodgates. Nobody anywhere other than your mom and dad and me and a small group of people are protecting you. Nobody else cares about you, like in the world. The YouTube influencer doesn't care about you. The rapper doesn't care about you. Sometimes they know and sometimes they don't know. By the way, Jim Rohn talks about that too. We've been programmed. My generation will answer this more than your generation. I don't know if they're still sayings. We'll find out in a second. Let's fix a couple of the wrong sayings that we grew up with. What you don't know, exactly not true. Exactly not true. What you don't know can hurt you, almost certainly will.
Ignorance is bliss.
That's another one. Ignorance is not bliss at all. Ignorance is suffering. Ignorance is failure. Ignorance is pain because you don't know. Now, do you remember the original part of this definition? The first part was what you know. And so if you don't know, you can't do it, right? Right? And it's not even your fault until you do know. But what's the most important part of that equation? Does anybody know? I don't know if I'm going to be able to ask the question in an articulate enough way, so I'm just going to go to the answer. If I don't know, I find the answer. I find the person that knows. If I want to learn how to manage my money better, I find somebody that's really, really good with money, and I learn from that person. If I want to learn how to be a better father, I find somebody who I'm like, man, look at the relationship this guy has with his grown kids, and da-da-da, and I take that guy to lunch. If I want to, right, like, you got to learn from the people with success in the areas, right? And yes?
have eaten into my head relentlessly to become like if I could see anyone else.
Absolutely.
That's the
Absolutely. Good job. Give it 2 claps. Yes, sir, JC. Why are you guys so far away? Come in here.
You're talking about the influence thing, like you are right, because it's like the saying, like you are when you eat, even though it's like an old saying, it is true. You surround yourself by people who are constantly in a state of negative or positive, whether you can emulate that or you can catch it. It's like a virus. That's it.
Exactly. Give them 2 claps. So the A was what you know, the B was what? Yes. What you decide about it, because quite frankly, the most important things in life aren't black and white, right? So you have to decide. The great arguments, the great social arguments of our time are you have to decide what you believe. But here's what I will tell you. We still at this moment in time have freedom of choice. It does not mean, however, which some people seem to think these days, that you're free from the repercussions of your choice. All right? There's always a direct correlation between how you decide and what you get. And then the third was what? Yeah. And this, because this is the one, because, you know, I mean, they may even seem similar, but not really, right? Because you can decide and sit around and be that person on Facebook that has an opinion on everything. Or you can do something with your life. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir. You guys wouldn't be here if you weren't trying to become better. You didn't want to be the best and highest version of yourself. You want to even be instructors one day and all those things. But I do hope that I said something. You know what I hope? Jim Rome said this, and when he heard it, it gave me tingles. I was like, that's what I hope. Because at the point he's given this talk, he's a millionaire many times over. So he says, look, I'm not here for the money. He says, I'm here for the stories. He goes, what motivates me to come talk to you here today is that one day, one of you may go forth and I get to be a part of your story. You say, I remember when that man taught me something that changed my life. Right? I get to become a part. And that's kind of what my motivation here is. My motivation is not that I'm a millionaire, but my motivation is to produce black belt leaders that I'm part of their story. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, especially during the last black belt test, that's one of the things that drives me when I teach is watching the students progress in rank, and then especially hearing your name being mentioned in those speeches is something completely different. Can't describe the feeling. So that kind of directly relates to what I'm talking about.
Totally agree. Totally agree. 2 claps. Yeah, it's certainly one of the reasons why people should want to do this. Right? Yes.
So it kind of ties all 3 of these together, I think. It's basically, like, especially in business, life as well, be smart enough to know what you don't know.
Yeah, well, that's some part of it for sure. So on the no part, on the first, the number 1, that's piece of it. That's the piece I was trying to explain too, about going and making sure that you learn what you don't know. And oh, by the way, if you're in school, don't leave without it. Make sure you're actually learning. In this Black Belt Leadership Program, it applies. You're learning philosophy that you get to make decisions about, and you get to choose if you're going to apply it to the rest of your life. And that's the thing that you do with any of it. Those are the 3 parts of the thing, okay? So give yourself 2 claps, because I have not forgotten that I said we were going to come up with the 5 or 6 things that make 80% of the difference in being a great instructor. Okay? Now, here's the way I want to do it so that I get y'all talking. You just talk in any vague generality. You don't got to know what we call it in my philosophy. If it happens to be something that speaks to a specific part of the philosophy, I'll put it up with the name. But you just speak to the thing that either made you feel a particular way or motivated you towards becoming a black belt, or, just something that Because of course we want to talk about the ones that we want to keep, not the ones we want to get rid of, right? So what are some of the 5 or 6 foundational in things that a great instructor has that make 80% of the difference? Let's see, Charlie. Empathy. I like it. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna decide if I'm putting that as a part of a specific philosophy or by itself here in a second. Go ahead. Love it.
Vision, so vision for the students and the school.
So we got empathy and we got vision so far.
Say like, the ability to transfer emotion onto the students at the next.
So good. Yeah. I'm just trying to decide because I'm gonna be limited to 5 or 6, so I got to figure out how I'm gonna put them all together.
Probably saying like being able to take ownership or criticism.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Somebody remembering all these for me? So I want to.
Writing them down so I
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Attitude.
Attitude. I love it, sir.
The ability to impart the knowledge to the person in the way that they can receive it.
Love it.
for that, I think we're trusted, for that, but, commitment, for not just to the job, but to teaching and helping everyone else learn as well, commitment to yourself, commitment to students.
Love it. Love it. Actions. Okay. Beautiful.
I think for me, one of the things that, the sensation stuff, they have an understanding of like the why, right? So that you can see they really have, if I make a mistake, I may not see what the mistake is, but they know those points to look for, so they understand the why in the situation.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I always find that very impressive, where I might be doing something, but like in defense, they're like, hey, you're moving your hand.
I love that. 2 claps. Okay. Keep going. Keep going. Yes, sir.
So the instructor has a big picture, but the student's just there for that lesson. The instructor kind of has the system and can see it in context.
Love it. Love it. And somebody, of vision.
Think that the instructors here, they know every student and they make them feel good.
Yes, you do. Good job. So it really in a handful of things, and these kind of got specific and a little technical, but have some of the things in them. But one of the overarching ones that all of you talked about is people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. So one of the most important things is the way we make people feel. Now, some of the most important things in which we make the way the people feel is some of the things that you all said. So for example, the empathy, the first rule, because what's the first rule of being an instructor at Krav Maga martial arts? Being a good finder. And tell them what that means.
Being able to pick out extreme and others. It's really easy to find faults in other people. It's harder to find good things. Or what being good finders.
Yeah. Too many people in the room have been through it, so I'm not going to do it right now. But the way when I first taught, I used to always, for the first few years, use this exercise to make that point. I would come up here and I'd start doing math. Some of you have been on it, right? I've seen it. And I'll just do like 3 or 4 or 5 equations correctly. Oh, and the part I'm missing that's not making sense to me yet is I start with, let me know when you notice something. And I do the math, and then I do like 5 or 6 things right, and then I make a mistake on purpose, and everybody notices something. And the lesson is that that's how people naturally are. See, it's by the way, it's one of the most obvious mistakes of new instructors, or even those that aren't really instructors yet, but they're CIT and they're walking the lines and have started acting as though they are instructors. And that one of the most common mistakes is that they have something wrong for everything.
You start telling them they did great on all this, but want to improve this area.
Yeah, well, and to go a little deeper about that, it's like, if there's something to correct, you correct it. But then, of course, you do it what you're talking about, the PCP, right? You praise them, you correct them, and then you praise them again. So you praise them on something that legitimately they're doing well. Wow, Enzo, I love the way you're keeping your hands up. You know, would you like to make your cross even better? And Enzo says, yes, sir. And I praise him for constant, never-ending improvement. And then I say, okay, what I want you to do is you're pushing it out, you're leaving it out there too long. Pull it back faster. Then I have to stick around long enough. To praise the new positive behavior. Otherwise, nothing has been accomplished. Right? So I have to, you need to bring it back, you need to bring it back faster. And then I need to watch him. And by the way, I might need to coach him because he might still not get it right away. Might take 2 or 3 times. But after those 2 or 3 times, he does it right. That's it. That's exactly it. Do it like that every time. Good job. Praise him again to freeze the fruit and I walk by. But what I'm talking about is the person that walks around, and by the way, I'm not mad at anybody because you don't know what you don't know. So I'm telling everybody now. The person that walks around, and if everything's great there, I'll just keep walking. Everything's great there, I'll just keep walking. Everything's great there, I'll just keep walking. Aha! And then, not only that, here's another example of doing it wrong. Another example of doing it wrong is, you are doing so many things great, but this person's only purpose in life is to find what you're doing wrong every time they talk to you. Is that empowering or disempowering? It's disempowering, because it's not that we shouldn't, and see, don't hear what I'm not saying. There was one time in my history that I was teaching this so strongly to try to swing it back from people overcorrecting, that the opposite problem happened. And I looked down and everybody looked like crap, and I'm like, what happened? That's the opposite extreme. It's not that you're not coaching people and making them better. It's just that part of coaching is telling them what they're doing right too. Right? You got to do both. And listen, all this stuff ties together. You guys said so many good things. I'm going to have Ali go through them all again to make sure that they got captured. But first, I put C4 because I used to teach this concept called C4, and I think it captures some of them. And that is, it was confidence, competence. So that catches a bunch of the things that we just talked about. Confidence, competence, candor, and commitment. Now, candor is an old term that a lot of you might not know what it means anymore. It means you mean what you say and say what you mean. So an example of not candor, and very, very common mistake again, is that you have something to say about a student or another student or a teacher or me or mom or dad or anybody, and you say it to everybody except the person. Candor means I tell the person. Look, it's not even always comfortable with my staff because I'll call them in immediately. And and I don't be rude to them or mean to them, but I'll immediately address the deficiency. Because if not, to me, that's unkind. To let somebody keep doing something wrong because you don't have the courage and the candor to tell them. Yes, sir.
I didn't catch all of those C's.
Yes. Can somebody do it that took the notes? All right, go for it, Daniel.
Confidence, competence, candor, commitment.
And I think that captures a lot of the things you guys said, because like some of the things that Tony said falls under competence. And some of the things that some other people said fall under confidence. You straight up said commitment, right? And that's such an important one, because that one's hard to fake. You can have a lot of the other stuff good and not have that, and it always comes out eventually. Ruins everything. This one I had created years ago, and the funny story about this one is it started when I first started teaching this concept. It was e cubed, and then it was e to the fourth, and now it's e to the fifth. Okay, so and I've probably even taught a few versions of it, but this particular e to the fifth is because of the fact that he said empathy. So I said, okay, let's add that to the e's. So, but it's excitement, E5. Excitement, enthusiasm, education. It's going to have to be E6 if I include his, because now I remember the original 5. Empowerment. So it's going to be e to the 6, so we can add his empathy. Because the fifth, when I added the fifth one, I was honestly, I hate to admit this, because it's so egotistic of me, but I was like,
Another E.
oh yeah, I was good. Give him some claps. But yeah, that one we don't want though. So it was energy. I was sitting down one day and I had some good instructors, but they were just boring. And I'm like, what is different between them and me? And I realized it was energy. So, and look, it doesn't mean, because people have different personalities. So it doesn't mean you have to be like over the top like Sensei Thomas and I, though it's helpful. But it does mean you have to at least, it ties to the transference of feeling thing. It ties to the, right? Who said the transfer? It was you. When you were talking about the transference of feeling, when you come in and you've had a bad day, one of the things that makes you feel good, and now you're having a good day, is if you have a class where you're sweating and laughing and, right? The sweat and the laugh and the laughing and and it's really the transference of the energy. Listen, I so much understand, and it's not me, it's really not egotism, because I fully believe it comes from God. But one of the things that I truly, truly love to do, tell you guys all my secrets today. The reason I love doing those school talks is because I'll go to a college or I'll go to a school or something, and they'll be either terrible or apathetic, or in the colleges, it's usually apathetic at the beginning. They're like, I don't know about this, I'm a grown up, like that. And I will get so much pleasure by totally transforming them in moments, in 20 minutes into the class, they're beginning to have fun, right? Like really have fun. And then 40 minutes into the class, they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever done, right? And then, right, and it makes me feel good, right? It's like, so, but that's what that is. It's the transferring of energy. And what I'm saying is that unfortunately, if you don't have that, or you don't find a way to have it, because let's face it, sometimes we got to find a way to have things we don't naturally have. If you don't find a way to have that, unfortunately, then you miss out on one of the most powerful things to serve the other person. Because like I told you, if you came in and it was that day, and you have the experience I'm talking about, you leave lifted up, right? But if you come in and the instructor is totally competent, he's teaching good, just boring, then you don't leave lifted up. Because remember, it's not about what you said, it's not about what you did, it's about how you made them feel. Now, by the way, that's another one that's misunderstood by young instructors sometimes. Doesn't mean you let them all run around and, it doesn't mean, right? Like, you've seen that. You've seen, especially on that side sometimes, the opposite mistaken extreme, where somebody just, thinks that fun means that there is no, they're just coming in for the next class. They don't mean to distract you. Stay focused. We're over there on that other side where people, were to be out of control and I'll come out of my office. That's instructors misunderstanding what fun means, right? Like fun does not mean you let the kids run around screaming like it's romper room, right? It just means that we make them feel good about themselves, right? The first rule is, now everybody can say it, right? What is it? Be a good finder. And being a good finder just means there's something positive to say about everyone. We'll come back and do something with that. Vision, I love the vision because one of the most significant positive changes we've made in recent history, which really kind of came from Grandmaster Smith especially, was the me understanding that really getting people tied to their long-term goal is such an important piece of retention, quite frankly, right? That it's not just how you make people feel, it's also getting them to want their goal of becoming a black belt leader as much as we want it for them, right? And then the R cubed is rapport, relationship, and retention. And retention is really kind of almost a result of the others, right? Rapport and relationship are two of the things that lead to retention. But retention also, there's other R's even, honestly, like renewal. Quite frankly, if a student stays in basic training too long, we know they're going to quit because they're not in here getting this, right? And the fact that retention means other things. How many of you have been missing classes for a little while and then got a missing in action call? Has that ever happened to any of you? Yeah, okay, so that's where the instructor calls, checks on you, makes sure you're okay. Hopefully those of you that never got one, it means you're so good at your attendance that you've never got one. Not that we're so bad at our calls, but you know. What about the good job notes? Who's ever gotten a good job note? Are we doing okay? Okay, good. Yeah, oh, man, you guys are scaring me. Those are all retention tools, right? And by the way, empathy. When young people use empathy, they usually just mean like, oh, I feel sorry for you. But let me show you one of the ways that I define empathy as relevant to this thing. Empathy is also just being able to perceive that something's wrong so that we can reframe it, right? So empathy in the sense of something's wrong with that kid. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. We need to find out. And when I've done that over the time, it's been so often totally different than what I thought it was. But it's still important because rather it's something that is based on their something going on here or something going on at home. Right? It could be a personal issue going on here or at home, like in the harder, more complex issues, or it could be something very simple, like they're making one of the two great mistakes, right? I know this, or in which case they feel bored because they think they've mastered it already, or the opposite extreme, where they're like, I can't do this. In either, are all those things fixable? Yeah, but we have to identify them, right? And listen, just to be clear, I'm not professing that we do an A+ job at any of it, right? Like we're trying, and we're trying to get better, and me teaching it to you is part of that, right? We want to keep getting better and better and better. The more people that understand what we should do, then the better chance of being able to execute it. Because there's always, John Maxwell, who some of you quoted earlier, talks about the execution gap. He says that the thing that always gets you is the gap between what you wanted to accomplish and what you actually accomplished. Yes. So, and then this, the reason I did this, honestly, was this is another lesson I used to teach that I think ties together some of what you guys said. Because the base here is the philosophy for our school. The philosophy of the school, which of course includes the vision, the mission, the core values, all those things, makes up the philosophy. But for us, it's also the black belt superpowers and the creeds, and right, like all that is part of the philosophy. And then there's the curriculum, right? Like what we actually teach. That's the area in which you need the competence as well, right? But then the last one is I had written it up here and then I realized I was going to do this instead, The last one is how we teach it. And to be honest, almost everything else we've spoken about falls there. Like making sure that we are empowering, not disempowering, making sure that we teach with energy, making sure that we are developing rapport and relationship and setting their goals and their vision and making sure that they're new and black belt verbiage, all the things. Yes, sir. Pedagogy. Yeah. Which some people pronounce that way, and some people pronounce pedagogy. I'm not even sure which is correct, even though I've been using it for like 20 years. Do you have an opinion?
I go with the hard G, pedagogy.
Pedagogy. That's the way I've mostly said it, and then I started listening to a gentleman that said pedagogy, and so it's probably one of the. She's probably right. It's probably tomato, tomato. You have an opinion? The second way. Pedagogy or pedagogy? Yeah. See, because I said pedagogy for a decade, and then I heard something on a tape where somebody said pedagogy, and I said, have I been saying it wrong all these years? But I really think it's one of those.
Was he Italian?
This is our English guy in the room, so he probably knows. All right, pedagogy. I'm going back to pedagogy. All right. Listen, and of course, who cares how we say it? What I care about is that you understand how to do it. And I gotta tell you that those are the hardest ones for me. And listen, let me go ahead and reinforce this. And please don't hear what I'm not saying. Again, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to explain why. It's why CIT really aren't supposed to be giving correction yet. Until I certify someone, they're not supposed to be giving correction at all. And the reason is because they'll do it wrong and do more damage than good. And again, I'm not saying for sure you'll do it wrong or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's supposed to protect against the possibility of that even happening. Because when we are walking around, we're supposed to make sure there's three things. Where's Sensei Winston? Did he walk out again?
He's in the team.
Sensei Winston, come here. You're going to answer this question. See if you remember. There are three things when you're walking the lines that you got to be doing. One of them is what? Praise, giving praise. When in doubt, give praise. What's the second possibility? Yeah, the correction, the small correction is not overcorrecting, but correction. And the third? We are doing high fives. We are doing all that stuff. You won't even know the answer to this because I added it recently. I'll just say if not, it's okay. All right, coaching. Because I feel like either they're doing something great that you can praise, or they're doing something wrong that you do need to correct. And most, like when I work with you guys, like today, it's hardly never those. It's the third one, coaching. Coaching is where, look, you're not doing anything wrong, but I'm going to make it even better. Coaching is that's awesome. I wrote on somebody's paper, great kick, pull it back faster. Right? Like, okay, yeah. Oh, two people's paper. When that's coaching, but you can do it, but you do it live. All right, that's awesome. But do you think you can be even faster? Do you think you can be even faster, Ephraim?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Tyson, you think you can be even? Oh yeah, I didn't even tell you what yet, and you did it. All right, give them 2 claps. But my point is, you can coach somebody. It's not actually praise or correction, but you're just coaching them by adding something new to the technique. I'm accurate now. What can I do to make it better? Right? I can be faster. What else could I do to make it better? I could be stronger, or I could rotate more, right? What else? I could pull it back faster. See, look, you guys can do it too. It's coaching. Yes, sir. I could be louder. I like it. Give them 2 claps. I like it. All right. So listen, I'm not sure that we accomplished my stated goal. Exactly. Actually, let me try, just see if because the start of this thing, Mr. Bond, was that I heard from Jim Rohn this great quote that said that in anything, there are 5 or 6 things that make 80% of the difference, the fundamentals. And so I said, after I taught a thing on philosophy and what it means and how you learn it, I said, wouldn't it be fun if we could come up with the 5 fundamentals, the most important things to being a great instructor? And then we actually talked about a lot of things, and so we probably haven't got it down to 5, but if we were to try to summarize it, It's empowering people and making them feel good about themselves, right? Which is empowering. So empowering the people, right? What's another one? If you try to just summarize it to only 5.
Empathy is brought up a lot in different
So the feeling, I mean, I think that is the feeling stuff, right? Like I think that the energy and enthusiasm and all that piece.
Energy would encompass all of that.
Okay.
Energy would include-
All right. So we got to be enthusiastic and energetic and empowering. Yeah, Damien? Committed. I love that one. Good. And of course, we got to be competent as well, right? So I think, yeah, the handful of things would be competent at the craft, competent about how to teach it, be really good about actually, here's this one. Here's how you take empathy and the one rule and all the other stuff I said and put it into the important thing, right? Is you put the student first. In other words, the lesson plan, the timing of the thing, none of it is as important as the student themselves. Rather, I'm empowering the relationship I'm developing, how I'm making them feel. Am I pushing them closer to black belt or not? Am I right? Like, so, and by the way, it's not always the obvious thing though. Like you've probably noticed that if a student is crying in a corner, very seldom will you see me go console that. Because I don't believe that type of empathy to be useful. I believe the type where I get them back out on the floor to be the most useful. Now, don't get me wrong, if I think it's serious enough, I send somebody that is better at that stuff. No, seriously, okay. I will close with a true story that will make you understand where I'm coming from. And how I am living the life that I was called to live, instead of the one I almost made a mistake. So while I was in the 3rd Infantry Division in Germany, I was doing my first master's degree, and it was in counseling and psychotherapy. And I loved the philosophical part of it. I loved the psychology piece. I loved learning I loved Albert Ellis's rational emotive therapy. I loved all that. And then I had the practicum thing where I had to actually work with people. And so many whiny, snivelly people in the world. And they don't want to take any advice. I was like, this is when it was all over, when they told me I needed to do something else. I said, life is tough, get a helmet. I'm just kidding, that didn't really happen. No, that didn't really happen, but I'll tell you what really did happen and why I love what I do here. Here, we give people tools to make themselves better, and they get to decide, and if they decide, they take action. There really was. I had this one girl as a case thing. She didn't want help. She wanted pity. And she wanted to go through the same pattern again and again and not break it. I believe that, and don't get, I know some people are disagreeing with me, like, I can't believe he's so cold. And I believe in you have to take responsibility for whatever it is. And you got to fix it. And you got to go do the work. And you got to, and if you're not doing it yourself, like, in other words, nothing I'm teaching you means anything either, unless you decide to do something with it. And oh, by the way, I'll close with this because it was another thing that Jim Rohn talks about all the time. This is all still part of the philosophy. The things that happen to us are like the wind. And the wind blows on everybody. Not necessarily the same wind, but the wind blows. Most people blame the wind. Blaming the wind is blaming the government, blaming the economy, blaming the boss, blaming the job, whatever it is. Blaming anything outside of your control. The people that are successful, that have the best philosophy, adjust the set of the sail. The wind blows, and what we do with the sail is what determines our destination. That make sense?
Yes, sir.
He said, as part of it, he said, then again, there's some people, he's got that voice, he goes, then again, there's some people, that they just never put the cell up in the first place. All right. Did you have fun?
Yes, sir.
Here's what, let's do this. Let's close with this for fun. You guys put together a list of 5. Say, of everything we talked about, and anything we didn't talk about. Maybe something that you were like, man, it was in my mind that this is part of it, but we just didn't talk about it. Send me the list. Say, these are the 5. Everybody has my email, right? ShehanSteve@tampacrawmaguy.com or grandmaster@tampacrawmaguy.com. And the 5 things that you think makes 80% of the difference towards being a great instructor. And remember, if you don't see yourself as a great instructor or great future instructor yet, it doesn't matter, because you look at me or Sensei Thomas or Sensei Ali or Sensei Winston or Sensei Charlie or Sensei Aiden, or you look at somebody else that you do think is a great instructor, and you say, what are the 5 things? What are the 5 things that make 80% of the difference? You guys got it?
Yes, sir.
All right.